screen so that we've got over 40 people on this call. So if you have a question, just throw it in the chat, and Christy or Jennifer will we'll be able to pull that up, and we'll certainly be able to unmute you if you're talking about your property. So everybody that submitted, I think we have 5 or 6 properties that have been submitted. So each one of y'all will talk about your properties, and then there will be questions. If you have questions about the property, just send them in, and they should be able to answer them online, or we'll ask them. Christy will ask them to that person talking. And if at the end, we're certainly open up for discussions if people want to have some comments. I would like to start before we actually go through the properties. From my experience on the lending side, I thought that'd be pretty interesting for most people. We have several properties in Atlanta that are financed through different sources. Our experience, and I'd be interested to see what everybody else's is, but we have one CMBS loan.
Alan's talking, but nothing's coming out.
Can
there
everybody else hear
There
me?
we go.
Good.
Okay.
We lost about
Do I
30
need to
seconds there, I think.
30 seconds. Okay. So I was just talking about the loans that we're experiencing. What we're experiencing from the loan side versus, obviously everybody's talked to tenants, I'm sure, and landlords about what they're doing with their clients. So we have several loans in Atlanta. One is a CMBS loan, and they have basically ignored us, and they have not responded and probably won't. If you have a CMBS loan, if your client has a CMBS loan, I suggest they certainly pay for April if they can. And what happens after that, who knows? But they're definitely not giving any relief. And they're basically holding the position, at least our experience has been, they're holding the position that pay the money or lose the property. We have also have a construction loan, and our lender on that is a local bank. They've been a little more cooperative with us, and they are still lending on the construction. So we have had no issues with them lending us money on renovations as we are doing them. And we're able to do a little renovation because construction is considered, in Georgia at least, a critical component of our economy. So you can have certain people there working. The other loan that we have is with the local bank. And they have given us a 90-day reprieve for principal and interest to be paid back at the end of the loan. So I know we're not here to talk about lending side, but I thought that would be an interesting segue into what we're getting into. If anybody else has any other experiences, raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so back to square one. We'll go to our first property. For those of you who have not done this, have not been on this call, what we do is we ask the people submit properties before the conference call, and spend about 2 to 3 minutes talking about your property. What do you have? Why is it? What's in it for you? What do you think makes it sing? And then everybody, if you have a property or you have a buyer for that property, you can certainly ask questions now, but it's always best to try to reach offline and talk to that person directly. And that way you can get in more information on that. So our first property is Steve Park with TRI. Steve, I see there's a blank screen, but you're now on. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. We just can't see
That's perfect.
you.
Yeah, so I have it's basically a 15,000 square foot office building that has a law firm within it that wants to do a sale leaseback. Per the notes that everybody can see, they're looking to lease back for plus or minus 7 years, 7.5 years, and the seller could achieve a plus or minus 7 cap on the deal. There might be a little bit of room to get a 7.25 cap. And in a nutshell, it's just a pretty, I don't know, somewhat safe investment for people that have 1031 money with a very vibrant, productive, very what do you want to say? I would say that the law firm does very well in our submarket. We're based in the Sacramento region, about 20 minutes north, per se, of downtown Sacramento, California. And they're just thinking that's a good time to sell. So bottom line, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The NOI is to be determined, as they'll want to see any offers that come in, whatever rent structure the buyer has in mind. And they'll probably want to pay right at market rents. So that's it, to keep it brief and short.
Steve, a couple quick questions. What is the market rent for office space in that area? And what's is it Roseville, California?
Correct.
What is,
It's
why
Placer
invest
County
there?
within the state of California. Market rents for that building right there are right around $2 to $2.15 a square foot, fully serviced. They're looking to do a net rent of roughly $1.80 a square foot, maybe 85 a square foot net, and the expenses are right around 69 cents per square foot. So they're willing to pay it. I mean, on those numbers, they're paying inflated rents. However, to be determined on what the buyer's pro forma, if they have a 1031, if they're just looking to buy some sort of a somewhat in this environment of the virus and so forth, safe investment. No debt either on the property. Each of the partners have they'll personally guarantee the lease as well, and they have significant net worth.
Steve, would they entertain a 10-year lease or something a little bit longer than 7.5?
We've had multiple offers on it, and they've all stipulated that. We've gotten to 7.5 years with having a couple options to extend, but they have not agreed to sign a firm 10-year lease.
Okay.
But maybe would consider a 10-year lease with an option to terminate after 7.5 years for a significant buyout.
Okay.
Just one more question, Steve. Are they occupying the whole building, or are they occupying part of the building and just master leasing the whole building?
Yeah, so good question. They do occupy about 55% of the property, and they would master lease it. They have 2 tenants in there. One's another smaller law firm. Another one is a group called Kisters North America, and they're based in Germany. Long and short of it, that the seller would master lease the entire property.
Okay. Any other questions, please type them in. Otherwise, we'll probably go to the next opportunity. It's a very interesting property there, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, David, you're up. Another California property.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. So yeah, my name's David Hosbein. I'm also in the Roseville office with TRI Commercial. Steve Park is there as well. So this property you're looking at are 9 townhomes. They're located in Ukiah, California, which is about 2 hours north of San Francisco on the 101 freeway. These were built in 2002. They're 3-story, 3-bed, 3-bath townhomes, garage on the first floor, and then living room, main living area on the second floor. And it's a loft structure with the master bedroom on the top floor. It's a buyer, or it's a seller who's interested pretty much in retiring. So he has sold his other properties in the Ukiah area, and this is one of the ones he is still trying to sell. It's a 5.3 cap on, actually more like a 5.5 cap on current income. But it's actually about 10-15% under market, but we're limited to about an 8% increase in California, 5% plus CPI. And the property is in excellent condition. Again, probably the best thing about it is 2002 construction, so pretty new, and it's located in central Ukiah, which is a little town, but that still has all good amenities. And I guess the big thing that puts you on the map anywhere is the Costco just moved in last year, and it's about 2 minutes away down the street. So that's the property.
Any questions on that? So where is what major city is near Ukiah? Obviously you mentioned Costco, but what else is there that would just why live there?
As you come down the 101, about probably 45 minutes south is Santa Rosa, an hour south Santa Rosa, and then Petaluma, and then Petaluma is probably an hour north of, or about 45 minutes north of the Bay Area. So it's the 101 as you head north out of the Bay Area. So yeah, Santa Rosa is the next one as you head south, and then Petaluma, and then you're into Marin, San Francisco, Oakland, you're down to the Bay Area. So I think the town is benefiting from kind of an expansion of residential people, actually some retirees and some just younger people who are, in a position to, they're like tech people who can go and kind of live in a more rural environment. It's a really, the area is really wine country north. It's the furthest north kind of wine country. And so there's a lot of vineyards. That's one of the main industries in the area.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? All right. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Our next opportunity is Charlie, Pittsburgh. Charlie, tell us about, well, finger looking good isn't quite the right way to say it anymore, right?
No, I guess not. No, actually, this is the same property we presented last time, the last call. I thought it was appropriate to keep it out there today. Just the IRS still hasn't extended the 1030 yet, which I'm not sure why they have not done that, but it's a good property. It's about 14 years, 8 months remaining on an absolute ground lease. Solid guarantor. Offered a 5.25 cap with rent bumps throughout the term. So I think it's if anybody has some clients that are in an exchange or rapidly coming up on an exchange, this could be a good deal for them to consider, for sure.
And where again is Evansburg?
Evansburg is it's outside of Pittsburgh, about an hour between Pittsburgh and State College. It's a good trade area. US 22 traveled corridor. This is part of a development that we have that with Aldi's, Taco Bell, Starbucks, and a couple other tenants coming up soon. So it's a brand new development. Good visibility from the highway. Be a good deal.
Have you seen any, with it being a restaurant now, I mean, are they open? Are they even open, or what are they doing there now? Yeah,
in the state of Pennsylvania, the restaurants are still allowed to be open. Drive-through service, which I think KFC is mainly a drive-through service anyway. So they are operating, I'm sure, with limited staff. But, all the fast food places are still operating throughout the state of Pennsylvania.
So general question for everybody, have people seen any kind of change in the cap rates with this, with the situation the way it is, or is it pretty much status quo, or are people still not quite reacting to it yet?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, there's not enough information. I mean, I think everyone's just kind of at a standstill, and not a lot of deals transacting.
I think you're right, Charlie. I think people are going to be, the buyers are sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what happens, because it could drop it pretty significantly if this thing keeps going on. You just don't know.
One thing I'd like to share, it's David Hosebon again in Roseville. I think this applies to everybody. And again, I agree that we're kind of frozen right now. There's the model that the White House and that others are using regarding this coronavirus is from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation out of the University of Washington, funded by Bill Gates. You can go online and get it. It actually just added the breakdowns for Europe just like earlier this week. According to that model, we're down to 60,000 total deaths in the US by August for this virus. That's the same amount as a bad flu season. And it's dropping. It was 90,000 a week ago. So this thing is turning the corner, and is, from everything I know, is this thing was vastly overblown. I certainly don't think we should be shut down through the end of the month in California, but check those numbers every day. They've turned the corner already in Italy and across Europe. I mean, it's turning way more rapidly than the mainstream news would let you know. So start looking at the metrics, at the modeling, because that's the real information.
David, would you type that on the chat so everybody will see it, where to go to get that information?
I'll put it in the chat.
I think for our purposes, you know, people have to be convinced of that before the buyers are going to be willing to come back to the pre-corona COVID issues. I'm seeing that as well. But okay, I think they want Charles. They want to know what's the lot size on this KFC?
Give me a second. It is 0.88 acres. 2,200 square foot building.
And the guarantor?
Guarantor is Mitra QSR. They're a 203 unit operator, 5,300 employees based out of close to Dallas, Texas.
And they own, do they own this building as well?
Yes.
It's a ground lease.
Interesting.
It's a ground lease.
Yeah, I've had, we do the restaurants that we have that have multiple sites that are, you know, in the 50 to over 50. They've all pretty much sent out, you know, emails to us saying, you know, we're not paying rent. And this is what we will do. They're kind of carte blanche across the board, just saying, this is what we're going to do. They're not going to individual owners to say, okay, what will you do? That's been our experience.
Yeah, I've had a client with an IHOP and a Wendy's, and same thing. It was basically kind of, you know, we need some help. One of them was, we need some help, and it was kind of, you know, didn't say what they wanted help with, and the other one said, hey, we're not paying rent for April and May on the IHOP.
So it'd be interesting to hear from everybody on what they're experiencing on that side of the coin. From clearly the restaurants and the workout facilities have been directly impacted by this. I don't know any of them that are actually paying rent, but I'd be interested to know if some of them are outside of the ones that are just the straight drive-through that are still open. But let's go on to the next one, and if you have some comments on that, we'll talk about it at the end. Ben? Ben, you there?
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I just said that pleased to be here, great call. And I work with Alan in his office in his shop, and first time on the call, so I'm sorry I missed the other ones, and I'm glad to be here. This is really great. By intro to this opportunity, it is a retail center. And I guess the theme is, well, this is what we were going to bring to the market about 3 weeks ago. And we'll see, you know, we'll see what the impact is of the current situation. But I think it might be worth presenting here in the context of, you know, this is a center that a seller does want to sell and is ready to bring to market. And so to the extent that, you know, someone has an buyer or wants to pounce, we have not taken it to market. It's not out there right now. So that's a little bit inside, you know, information for our group here. And if it's a fit, obviously the numbers.
Yeah, but I've got to make a couple other changes too.
Somebody's chatting.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I think the numbers here in this cap rate probably, you know, it's likely to change. I don't know what it changes to or what it goes, but let's just share it with y'all. And if anyone looking for something, here it is, and we can talk about it later. So that being said, if you dial back to where we were a couple of weeks ago, it's 100% leased, 27,000 square foot, fully stabilized, very well built, very nice. McDonough is a southern suburb of Atlanta, probably 45 minutes from the airport on the south side of town. And the seller is the original builder who built this 20 years ago. He has owned it, managed it, leased it, cared for it, swept the pavements himself. So there's a lot of kind of pride and ownership, and which reflects favorably in terms of maintenance and construction. The leasing is a little sloppy because he did it himself without our involvement or anyone else's involvement. But in that, it's a really nice center. He's built 30 of these around Atlanta. We sold back in December. We closed an identical, so pretty much, the same plans, identical center, 2 buildings just like that in another southern Atlanta suburb, 15, 20 minutes from here. And we closed it at a 7.5 cap. So he was looking to do the next one. And then we just got caught by this virus thing. So that's the story, and happy to hear from anybody who thinks it might be, might be something to take advantage of here while in this period of uncertainty.
Ben, who are the makeup of the tenants right now?
Yeah. So the tenants are probably all closed. I'm guessing. There's a Thai restaurant, there's a gym, there's a barber shop, a nail salon, a donut shop, a wing shop, a Southern home cooking restaurant, a seafood restaurant, a physical therapy. They might be open. A hiring, what do you call it? A job hire placement firm, a State Farm Insurance, and a financial office. So, I'm guessing at the moment it's pretty dark and scary over there, but not scary, but pretty dark. But as soon as we get on the other side of these things, these were all very stable, viable, long-term leases on most of these people. They've all been there except for the State Farm was relatively new within the last few months. And the restaurant had changed ownership. But other than that, long-standing tenants with, good history.
So you've got about probably a dozen or so tenants maybe. So all fairly, a lot of smaller tenants.
Yeah, 14 mom and pops.
Okay. And McDonough really caters to the airport, right? A lot of it.
It's a little bit east of the airport. I wouldn't, it's on the south side of town. So, bedroom community, some industrial activity, apartments, as you can see in the picture. Part of the Atlanta MSA.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? Current rents compared to market.
Those are all going to be very at market or slightly under market. His rents are pretty good. There's not going to be anybody here, grossly overpaying.
What are the market rents right now?
Well, right in that, I'd say, you know, $20 a foot. Well, he structures his lease. This guy structures his leases as some type of modified gross situation. They're not, like I said, the leasing is sloppy. So, you know, call it $20 a foot, gross, you know, 15, 16 net.
For you California boys, divide that by 12. It's $1.67 for you guys. Okay. Any other questions for Ben? Thanks, Ben. That was great. We'll go on to the next one. Nick?
Morning, everybody. First time on the call here. I'm out in Portland, Oregon. You'll notice a real estate investment group logo. We just merged with your guys' Portland group here, Capacity Commercial Group, about 3 weeks ago. So excited to join the CORFAC team here, and figured, you know, first call, I might as well throw something up there and just see how this all goes. So
welcome aboard.
Thank you. Yeah, so we just put up one of our investments, just kind of wanted to see the platform here. This one is actually a casualty of the COVID crisis here. This was under contract, actually technically still is until the termination agreement's signed, but had a 1031 buyer, and the buyer's 80 and decided that he was going to pay the tax rather than buy an exchange. So nice little, this is in Vancouver, Washington, which is essentially part of the Portland metro area, even though it's in Washington, which is actually an income tax-free state compared to Oregon. But nice little center, below market rents, you know, it's like low $20 rents. It's a 5.5 cap on actual, which is about 82% leased. We actually had a lease lined up for the last space with a Mexican restaurant, and was a couple days away from getting it signed when they shut all the restaurants down in Washington. So a little bit of a casualty, but overall good real estate. I mean, new rents in this area are low 30s a foot. So, you know, it's 30%, 40% below market rents, right next to a hospital. Mainly, you know, local regional tenants, some national franchises with regional credit. So nice little deal in the 7.5 range. We're selling another deal for this guy about 10.5. And then if there's any other 1031 buyers that you guys are working with, and I mean, we have retail centers anywhere between 2.5 and probably 13.5 right now. And then we got a student housing deal that's around 20 million. So just kind of throw that out there since I haven't been on the call before, and just give you an idea kind of the range of the stuff we're working on.
So Nick, just so you'll know, if you have a specific requirement, you can go through the intranet for the CORFAC intranet and send out your requirement to all the investment sales guys at CORFAC. So if you say you have a buyer that's looking for, you know, properties in the west part of the country, retail centers, you can certainly send that out to all investment brokers in that area as just a kind of a broadcast email, and they'll get it. So yeah, that's it's there. You just go through the intranet for the CORFAC, and be sure to make sure that you're listed as an investment broker on CORFAC, so that you'll get the same emails from the other investment sales. I'm not sure. I think we have over 150. Is that right, Jennifer? How many, or do you know how many off the top of your head investment brokers we actually have?
Yeah, that sounds about right, Alan. I could pull a report and share it with you, but yeah, it should be somewhere in that number.
So if you're listed as an investment broker, then you'll be getting these broadcast emails from people when something comes up. So you know, these calls are very important. We want to have them, but at the same time, if you've got something that pops up before we have these calls, that platform is very easy to just send out information. And it doesn't have to be a listing. It could be a buyer that's looking in a certain area. So just keep that in mind.
Good. No, I haven't played around with the internet yet, so I'll get access from the capacity guys and do that, because we got a couple 1031 buyers, small little guys that, you know, we're looking down in Texas at Starbucks and that kind of stuff. So that's good to know there's resources here.
Phil's head just popped up. I saw that. Well, we have plenty of Texas boys on this phone, so you guys should reach out to Nick. At least you've got his email up on the screen there. Be sure to reach out to him, tell him if you've got anything.
Great.
We'll do
All
that.
right. Next up. All right, we got Trey, Florida.
Hey, how you guys doing today? So this is a retail center that we have here in Lake Mary, Florida. The owners have bought it with the intentions to lease it out and then to take it to market. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the whole goal for this center was they did purchase it. It was majority vacant at the time. Our firm was brought on probably about 9 to 10 months ago to assist with the leasing, with the expectation that they were going to sell it. Now, just so everyone's aware, you probably did get the email that we sent out that they are going to utilize CBRE to take this property to market once it's officially leased out, and but they've kind of given us the opportunity that within our network, even within the CORFAC network, if we find a buyer before that time, then they're more than happy to kind of trade at that time. So, like I said, it is anchored by Publix. Publix Publix income is about 57% of the total NOI on it, and so at the end of the day, you're looking at more of a Publix deal than you are with the inline tenants. Publix does have another 5 years left on their lease, and so they just renewed, I believe, December of last year, and so you have a full 5 years left on there for the most part. We were almost going to be 100%, obviously, because of the COVID-19 issue. The property we did have a little casualties inside there, and so whereas I was gonna hopefully be able to get on this phone call today and say that we're 100% occupied. Unfortunately, we're not. We do have 2 deals that did freeze, and so we don't think they're officially dead yet, but we don't think they're not going to be moving forward for the next couple of months. So right now, the property sits with three vacancies. They're all, I think, total vacancy is about 7% of the total, or actually about 12% of the total center. So all small bays, about 1,000 square feet. Rents in the area. This Lake Mary itself does have a high income, so the average income around the center is about $92,000 within a 3-mile radius, and so it is pulling from a high net worth in the area. Publix themselves have done very well in this center. The biggest challenge on the leasing side has literally just been that this is a side of Lake Mary that is it doesn't have as many homes. It has high net worth, but a little bit the home count is smaller. And so at one point, the owner was really looking for high $25 to $26 a square foot in rent. We kind of came in and told them that that's unrealistic for the area, that you're really going to be striking deals between $19 to $21 a square foot. Once he got on board with the realistic lease rates, we've been able to lease out the space.
So tell us about the Publix situation. Obviously, 5 years is a little scary on a neighborhood shopping center. Grocery anchored. Obviously, they must have been there for 20 years before.
So their lease started in 1999. So yeah, about 20 years before that. All options for this Publix center have been 5-year options. It's a little bit of a smaller box than what they're used to here in Florida. This one, the Publix box here is 37,000. They typically like a little bit of a bigger box, and so I think with the smaller scale stores, they are pretty much staying around 5-year renewal periods.
And how many other grocery stores are within, say, a 2-mile radius of this?
There's not actually a lot. There was talk of a newer Aldi that was going to go into the north of this property. I'm not sure if that's taking place anymore. But it's for the most part, this is the only player within a 3 to 5 mile radius. We can kind of send out that information, if anyone wants, and kind of show you where all the different Publix or the grocery stores are around this one. The closest one was going to be the Aldi, but I do believe that did come to a halt as far as why we haven't been told or have any information on that.
And what's the tenant mix look like after Publix?
Sure. So it's all mom and pops, all ranging between 1,000 to 2,000 square foot bays. The only national name brand or name recognition would be Mariner Finance. It is a local franchisor though. So at the end of the day, it's your guarantor is the local operator. So it's all mom and pops outside of the Publix. So
Trey, question.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could sell the Publix without the inline shops? Would he split it?
I'm sorry. There was talk of that at one point. The owner, we actually presented that with someone else, and he turned that down. Now, obviously, post COVID-19, that might be an option that he would look at. Initially, though, he did turn that down.
So, based on the last, or I think you shared this with Alan, and we looked at it. I do have someone who's potentially interested in just the Publix. I don't know if you want to take that question back, given the change of the universe, and see if he's open to it. But we did have interest.
We could absolutely have that conversation again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ben, why don't you reach out to Trey offline and talk to him about that? This one, just general question, Trey, for you is what the smaller tenants is what kind of makeup? What industries are they in?
Yeah, sure. So we do have one tenant. This is their second location. It's a taco Mexican restaurant. Another one is a nail salon. Like I did mention, the finance shop, an insurance shop, and then a Chinese restaurant. We also, some of the newer tenants that we put in there was the Mexican restaurant, as well as a smoothie shop is in there as well. Outside of that, we did have LOIs out for a pizza user to take the end cap that was going to be 1,000 square feet. It was just going to be simply mainly delivery. He was going to utilize a small patio on the side of the property. And then we also had an LOI out for a physical therapy. One of the vacant bays was a former hair salon. So we do expect to be able to backfill that with a hair salon at some point. There's no current hair salon inside there. So we're hoping to be able to get a pretty high rent when we get to that point. But like I said, most of it is just mom and pop shops, nail salons, Chinese restaurants, and then a couple finance users.
And tell me, what is Lake Mary? Why invest there?
So Lake Mary is actually a pretty good hub for a lot of national corporations inside there. So you have Verizon Wireless has their corporate office there. I believe there's a couple other larger corporations. Dan's on this phone call. He might be able to speak to some of the larger corporations that are in that market as well.
You got AAA's. AAA's got their international on the other side of Lake Mary.
Mm-hmm. So Lake Mary sits just to the north of Orlando. For the most part, you do have a lot of high income in that area. That area has absolutely taken off. There's some new infrastructure that's going in up in there. Just in front of this center themselves, they're actually redoing the road. And so, for the most part, we've always everyone's viewed Lake Mary as a strong submarket of Central Florida. Simply because you have some older subdivisions in there. You do have a lot of new ones that are going in, but for the most part, it's just a really stabilized area.
Well, that's a great off-market listing. I know a lot of people, there's a big demand for groceries anchored neighborhood centers. So if anybody obviously has any potential buyers, reach out to Trey, and maybe we can make a deal here. But that's a great, those are very unique, hard to come by.
Be great. We'd love to do a deal with someone.
Thanks, Trey. Let's see, opportunity number 7. Dan?
Yeah, hey everybody. First call here as well, so appreciate being able to listen in and participate. Here, basically, I wanted to submit this. I have come from a investment background primarily. Have relationships with private equity funds, real estate investment trusts, things like that, net lease buyers. So I would say this is probably a handful of needs, both on the net lease side, single tenant primarily, but if there's maybe 2 or 3 tenants. So, you know, I have at least a half dozen folks that are looking for, you know, industrial product still, although, you know, I'd say there's a little bit of a pause right now, or pricing may be a little adjusted depending on the product and where it's at and what it's located and who the tenant is and kind of their exposure to, you know, to COVID and things like that. But bigger the better. Some groups, one primarily looks for kind of primarily, you know, 6+, you know, stabilized product, some value add investors as well. So I'd say, you know, if there's an industrial property, you know, you know of, or you have a listing yourself, it's in a primary, secondary market, well located, you know, it could be warehousing, distribution, and certainly anything with a solid tenant with some lease term associated with it. You know, please reach out to me and we can talk and see if it's something to bring in front of some of my folks.
So Dan, another suggestion, clearly you want to send this out to the investment group, but you also might want to do the same for the industrial leasing side, just to send out, because you have a buyer basically looking for a certain need, and they might, that CORFAC intra market might be able to pull some other potential product for you.
Okay, great, will do.
Does anybody have any other questions for Dan? That's a great buyer there. That's if you got any listed industrial. I know we don't do industrial, but some people do. A lot of people do. Okay, thanks, Dan. Next.
Thank you.
All right, John, Pittsburgh.
Hello, can you hear me?
You can.
And you can see me. All right, this is one, I think we verbally maybe talked about this on a past call, but we are now blasting it. It's in the Richmond market, just west of Richmond and near South Richmond. It's well located. It sits in a Food Lion anchored retail center, and it's an attractive building. The tenant, it's single tenant, triple net lease. Bryant and Stratton has been there since the late 90s. Bryant and Stratton is a good for-profit college. I know that might be an oxymoron to some people because there were some bad guys in that industry a decade ago, but it's been around since the late 1800s, and this is a great location for them, and they just renew and renew and renew. They renewed early, and that's why we're trying to sell it now. There's over 5 years left. It's held by one of our affiliates, so we control this. We were a little unsure on how to price it because it's a great looking building. They put a lot of money into it, but it is in an industry that a lot of folks are unsure about. So I think the right buyer is someone who just understands how to look at a smaller or medium-sized company financials, which are available. They're pretty good and can get comfortable with the story here, which is a tenant that's been there forever and keeps renewing, and it's attractive real estate. It could be shifted into a medical office building or anything along those lines. The location is good, the visibility is good. Like I said, it's adjacent to an attractive retail center anchored by Food Lion.
So do we have this is in Richmond. I don't know do we have any Richmond people on? Do anybody from Porter on?
We talked to the Porter folks about this. We let them know it was in our portfolio and that we would be taking it out to market probably once we papered the renewal. And we may, down the road, we may work with them on this. It's one of those situations that could be a fit. We were seeing if they had any buyers and things like that, but I don't think anyone's on the call from Porter.
Okay. Well, that's a very unique situation. Certainly, those guys. It's one of those. I'd certainly send out something to all their brokers just locally, just let them know about it, because they do a lot of industrial, I know, but they do have some in office guys.
Yeah, that's what we talked to them. They said they're heavier in industrial, and this is more of a retail play in some ways. It's interesting. It looks like an office building, but it's a classroom building in a retail center. So kind of a hybrid. 2% annual bumps. Good story there. I think the real selling point here is the 8 cap, and really we'd probably take a little higher than that cap rate wise. So I think the right buyer, maybe a larger exchange buyer that's going to blend together 2 or 3 properties. They don't want landlord responsibilities. It could be a real winner way to generate some extra return there, just because the cap rate's a little more reasonable compared to some other triple net lease assets that are out there.
Right.
John, this is Eduardo Lara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Does the tenant have thought about staying there, or with the new situation on the COVID-19, has it changed anything with regards to this building?
We have not heard from this particular tenant. I do have some general feedback on that as well I could share. So I assume that they're open and doing classroom through Zoom and things like the public schools and other universities are doing. So I'm assuming they're okay. We should check on that. We've got a lot of tenants. We actually have a hospitality affiliate. They're not doing so hot right now. So there's a lot going on with that, with our clients and in our affiliate.
But they're paying the rent?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I just heard, Alan, about the chain of restaurants not paying the rent. Here, we've already said to our tenants that have thought about not paying rent that unless they get to a negotiation, we will evict them. So I don't know how the situation over there is being handled, or if contracts are being enforced. But if there's a way to talk to this tenant and he is willing to go beyond the 5 years, we would be interested in this property.
We tried to get a 7 or a 10-year deal, and so we think this one's set at 5. There's a little more than 5 years now on it because they renewed early, but I think that's where it is. In terms of what we're seeing with what we manage in terms of the landlord and tenants, we have properties in 15 states that we manage, and we are receiving most rents up through March. We've now heard from a handful of tenants that they won't be paying or haven't paid April rent or May. An example that happened just before this call, which I think is particularly interesting, is NTB. That's a tire repair place, and they're tied in with TBC Corp, who has over 1,000 locations. I believe that TBC Corp is, with almost all of their locations, just from my conversation on the phone, they're going to offer the following to all their landlords. And I think this is a model for what we're going to see with some retailers. They're going to pay no rent in May, June, and July, and then pay double rent the 3 months that follow and square up by the end of the year. Now, I think that's about as good as landlords are going to get. And so our affiliate verbally accepted on 3 locations because really there's going to be more challenging situations. Other retailers, for example, Mattress Firm, they're saying they're not going to pay rent for 4 months, and some of the casual dining guys are in a lot of trouble. So it runs the gamut. There's a wide range of negotiations going on, but I thought I would share that NTB story because I thought it was interesting and happened right before the call. And I think that provided a good thing for both the tenant and the landlord.
Yeah, well, if they are willing to compromise, well, it's better than nothing. But there are people that will say we're not paying. So if you're not paying, you'll be out on the street. Let me ask you something about financing for this property. Have you, or for any property by that matter, have you guys heard anything from the banks, or how would financing go? We would finance 50% of this of the value of the property, and the rest would be equity.
I think at that LTV, I think that financing is available. I talked to Charlie, a colleague of mine who was talking about the KFC just a few minutes ago, and Charlie talked to a couple of CMBS contacts he had. I've talked to a number of regional banks. They are still lending selectively, especially the regional banks, but also a few life companies are still lending. I think with reasonable borrowing terms, like a 50% LTV, depends on the amortization, obviously, and things like that. I think that deals will still get done, but boy, I mean, it's been a changing environment. But I'd like to call, someone mentioned earlier, hey, the curve looks flat, and maybe things are starting to turn around. So not all borrowers are out of the game at all.
Well, that's a very good discussion for the next round of Zoom, I think. See, you know, who the lenders are, and are they lending? But thanks, John. Eduardo, why don't you reach out to John on a separate email, or reach out to him separately from this, and you guys can talk more about that property.
Yes, I'm chatting with John right now. I'm going to send him my email so he can send me the whole information and we can talk later.
Great. And our next opportunity, trying to get done within the hour here. So I think that's it. I think this has been helpful. We want to continue to do this again, probably once a month, maybe once every other month, depending on how people perceive this as being of value. The last thing I want you to do is not feel that you're sitting on this thing for an hour and not getting any value out of it. So your input would be helpful. I think we'll probably send everybody, Jennifer will send everybody a questionnaire later. And just if you have some ideas and suggestions on how we can make this even a better program for you, that would be great. We'd appreciate your input. So I think we're within the hour. Unless does anybody else have any comments or thoughts before we leave?
Alan, quick question for the group. Talking about, it made me start thinking about it with John's deal. Has anybody had any success with these tenants trading out some short-term help for extra term? Meaning, you know, give a tenant 3 months of free rent, but I need 2 more years on my 5-year term to get me to 7. Has anybody had any discussions or success with doing that?
Yes, that's happening. Things like that are happening. I mean, yeah, in a word, yes, that's possible.
I'd love to hear from anybody else, any other success stories out there. You know, where are you finding opportunities to do deals, or, you know, better improve maybe a landlord's or a tenant position other than just getting 2 months of free rent? I mean, any other creative stories out there, anything that you can share with the group?
So just, I can comment a little bit on ours because we have a lot of small tenants. We're looking at several factors. We're looking at what kind of tenant have they been? Have they been a problem tenant in the past, or have they been a good tenant? When's their lease up? But in a general sense, what we're doing here is in Georgia, we cannot evict. So the tenants know that. And so you're going to have a hard time evicting these tenants, and they're going to be able to stay there for 90 days at no rent if they want to. I think after 90 days, we'll probably be able to evict, and there'll be plenty of tenants that will do that. But with the most part, we're saying if you show us your financials, if you need the rent concession, we'll look at it. But every tenant needs to be treated differently, because if you treat one, they all are in a different financial situation. They do different things. So we are typically going, okay, pay us at least operating expenses. Pay us something. Don't just say you're getting nothing, period. Now, if it's a big group, like John was talking about, we know they're going to pay us the rent, then we're a little more flexible. If it's a Subway that says, look, this is what we're doing across the board for all our spaces, I mean, fine, you do it, because you're not going to get them to change their mind on 3 out of their 50 stores. But if you're, so to me, every tenant's a little different. That's been my experience. I'd love to hear from other people to see what they have to think.
I agree.
Hey, I was just, this is Greg. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Scott, I just sent you a text. We own a shopping center, and we just came to an agreement with a Planet Fitness franchisee, giving them up to 5 months of free rent. So the rent will kick in if they reopen in less than 5 months. Still paying triple net, abating the base rent in exchange for the early exercise of a 5-year option that was already in the lease. So that's a very specific example of what you were asking about, I think.
That's good.
Yeah, I think again that goes back to what's the deal, who are the people, what's the situation, and you know, you don't want to nobody needs to take advantage of anything, whether it's a tenant or landlord. You just need to work it out, make it fair for both parties, and I think everybody's happy. One quick thing, I think Andrew wanted to, from Wolf, wants to throw out one additional opportunity. Andrew, go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
Thanks, Alan. And I'll post a link. We have a landing page on our website with all the details. I'll post that in chat right now. The quick summary is we have the listing off market, a behavioral health care addiction rehabilitation center about 15 miles out of Philadelphia. It is triple net lease, 10.5 years remaining, with an NOI of just over $1 million, 3% escalators. It's a 45-acre campus with 3 buildings on it, about 40,000 foot of existing buildings. They're new construction, built in 2015 and 2018. There's opportunity to develop an additional building, and the tenant, the seller, is looking for about a 6 cap. National tenant, they've got about 80 locations around the country, and working on a lease extension at the moment. So again, I posted a link in the chat. You can click that and get the landing page there.
Yeah, I'm on your website right now. Pinelands Recovery Center, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll add this to the list that goes out. I'll have Jennifer add that last one to the list, and then when next time we convene, we'll definitely add you to it. So
great. Appreciate it.
Our hour is up. You're welcome. If there's any other questions or anything, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Again, give us your feedback, what you liked, what you didn't like. And I think Joe, are you up next? I think Joe is up.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say something. I was just going to cut in. Actually, Chaim's up next. So I wanted to throw a little plug for the next 3 that we currently have scheduled. So next Tuesday, the 14th, we're doing office. That's being moderated by Chaim. The following day, Wednesday, the 15th, we're doing retail. That's being moderated by myself. And then the following day, Thursday, we're doing industrial, and that's being moderated by Frank Schultz out in LA.
Actually, industrial, Joe, is going to be on Friday.
Okay, we bumped that to Friday.
Yeah.
All right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, all 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. I encourage everyone to participate. I'm getting a lot out of this. I hope everyone else is as well.
Yeah, and I will, Joe, just to piggyback on that, I will be sending out a note to all of CORFAC members this afternoon with the details on those calls, so you can get it into your calendar.
And I know this is an investment call, but if you're interested in knowing what retail tenants are doing and not doing, paying rent, not paying rent, or office industrial, I'm sure we'll be talking about that at those meetings. So these things do impact us as investment sales guys and owners. So hopefully you can get some benefit out of that. And best practices, here we are. That's what we're all about.
Amen.
All right. Well, stay virus free. Thanks, the words of our British friends. Go ahead, Alistair. You tell us what's your.
Well, I've just been listening really intently to everything that's been said, and I think it's been an incredible call. I'm going to talk to Charlie and see if we can actually get a European one of these going, because it's interesting to share experiences, deals, tenants, things happening in particular marketplaces. So I think it's been a good lesson. It's been a good hour as far as I'm concerned. The situation in London is there is no debt. The banks are not being encouraged to lend any money on investment transactions because we are ploughing our money into saving the economy effectively. The coronavirus has hit this small island very, very hard, like it has around the world. As far as real estate is concerned, there hasn't been enough investment transactions to see whether it's made an impact. But the generally held view at the moment is that the retail industry investments are dead and buried. Most of the retailers didn't pay their March quarter day rent and have got very little prospect of paying their June quarter day rent. The office investment world is probably off about 1/4 to 1/2 point, but there's still some acquisition work going on amongst the big corporates that have business plans. The government's taking a bit of space as well around the country. But it's safe to say that the SME world, which in the UK goes up to about 45 million turnover, I think, 45 million pounds, is pretty much ground to a halt. On the non-payment issues, a lot of landlords are seeing tenants take advantage of this. So what you were saying, Alan, earlier about show us your bank statements, show us your working management accounts, and then come and have a sensible conversation with us. A lot of those things are happening here to ensure that those that need the money in the system actually get it. We think that the institutions here are net sellers as their funds are decimated by some of the stock market falls and other rebalancing that needs to go on. So there won't be much in the way of institutional purchases. And there are a lot of guys with a lot of money, hundreds of millions of pounds in the bank, waiting for the Armageddon, Achilles heel type deals that they think are around the corner. So we've got to let this play out. The eternal optimists of this world reckon it's a V. I think the realists amongst us believe it's a U in shape recovery. I don't think any of us know actually how long the base of the U is going to be. We're just going to have to sit it out and wait and see. But we're having somewhere between 700 and 1,000 deaths per day here at the moment. And it's going to escalate over the course of the next 2 weeks. So most of the UK doesn't believe it'll be back in its office until probably mid-June, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a bit later, but around about mid-June. So we've a load of government initiatives trying to help the economy get through it. The furloughing, that is an American term, some of the grants in terms of taxes and deferred taxes, and a bundle of measures that are probably about £500 billion at the moment being piled out to help the economy. But you know what? We're all in this boat together. And so long as there is a marketplace, there's deals to be done and there's fees to be had, whether it's a good market or a bad market. So long as the market actually exists, then there's some transactional work to be done. But it's been a pretty brutal month for us all, I know.
Yeah. Well, in the words of our British friend, stay calm, carry on. All right, thanks everybody, and look forward to talking to you our next Zoom.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Alan. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great job, Alan.